Welcome back to another episode. Today, I want to take a closer look at Nebius, Coreweave, OpenAI, and NVIDIA. We got a lot to talk about this AI market, so let's get started with today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first, let's kind of start off with Nebius. Nebius, like I mentioned, is all over the place today. Pretty much flat as I am recording. And the main reason is the company did announce two things. They announced a bit of a dilution of shares and also an increase of debt. The reason they're doing that is to build up cash. Now, what do they want to use the cash for? So they intend to use the net proceeds from the offerings that they have announced today to pretty much continue growing their business, including the acquisition of additional compute power and hardware, securing strategic high quality and well-located land plots with reliable providers, and the expansion of their data center footprint. They believe that this will enable them to aggressively grow their core business in 2026 and beyond. So that's the main reason, right? They're overall they got that Microsoft deal. They want to use that to buy more compute, to buy more land, to pretty much build more data centers so they can grow their AI market. Now, I want to explain a little bit of how they're doing it. So they're going to raise about $3 billion. $2 billion of that is going to come from senior notes or convertible senior notes. Now, convertible senior notes are pretty much debt. So they're going to increase their debt by about $2 billion. These senior notes are going to be $1 billion due on 2030, $1 billion due in 2032, with the ability for the purchaser to actually even buy another 150 million for each. So an extra 300 million. So in theory, it can go to about $2.3 billion in senior notes. So that's an increase in debt. Now, the second way is they're going to do an offering of Class A. Now, this is a bit of a dilution of shares. A leading AI infrastructure will build about $1 billion public offerings of the company's Class A ordinary shares. So first, I would say, if I am a Nebius shareholder, this is not something I would be worried about. This is what was expected, especially as they want to continue to grow in this AI infrastructure. The AI infrastructure needs a lot and a lot of cash at hands. So this is why, if you've been following this channel, one thing that I've mentioned is many people say the bullish case for Nebius is they had an amazing balance sheet. And one thing I was saying is that is not always going to be the case. And we're seeing it firsthand here. Now, overall, I think this is a great move. I think it's going to allow the company to expand its AI infrastructure at an even faster rate. Now, Coreweave today was up about 16% while I am recording. Main reason is pretty much Oracle's earnings, right? Oracle pretty much mentioned that we are still AI compute constrained. The CEO of Coreweave was actually, I believe, on CNBC yesterday when these earnings were pronounced, and he pretty much mentioned this is just a massive tailwind for the AI infrastructure market. Now, Coreweave, we have heard that we'll talk a little bit about it, but we have heard that this massive project with Oracle is OpenAI. That's the one that's increasing that overall RPO dramatically. We also know that OpenAI and CoreWeave kind of have a partnership. So I wonder if the market is somewhat expecting CoreWeave and maybe Oracle to also link up, as OpenAI is linking up with Oracle and it's linking up with CoreWeave. So maybe the ability for them to transition and work is getting a little bit exciting. Also, just like I mentioned, it kind of showcases the massive tailwind that we need for the AI space. Now, I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, but Nebius versus Coreweave, how the story has changed. I own both. I own a ton more Coreweave. But one thing I found weird was people comparing the balance sheet between the two and saying Nebius was the obvious choice because Nebius for some time did not have any debt. I argued that this would not be the story for long, but many said I was wrong. Today, in theory, Nebius, we saw increase their debt by $2 billion after jumping from 0 to 1 billion last quarter. So now they are increasing their debt to about $3 billion, and they don't have kind of the same type of revenue as CoreWeave. So this is where I think it's important to understand the dynamics of the market. I was seen like a fool just a few days ago choosing Coreweave over Nebius. I mentioned both are pretty strong, but I am still pretty excited with Coreweave, and I am pretty excited with how it's doing. I mean, Coreweave today is up about 16%. In the past 5 days, without any major deal, the stock is up roughly 31%. Now, I believe both of these are going to be great winners. I'm going to continue to add to both. I am very happy now with my Coreweave position. Now it's more like a dollar cost average approach for both of them. them, as I have built my main bulk with Coreweave. With Nebius, this has always been a dollar cost average for me. Now, with OpenAI, this is why you have to subscribe and hit the thumbs up to this channel, right? No one else is giving you this type of knowledge, right? Many people were just promoting the great balance sheet that Nebius. I was preparing Nebius shareholders, even if they didn't want it, that the balance sheet was going to start shifting pretty quickly. So make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this. So OpenAI is reportedly the one that is about $300 billion of that RPO from Oracle. Now, this might be a little bit weird. Obviously, now you're putting a lot of eggs in your baskets with the RPO. And if something happens with OpenAI, Oracle can fall with it. There are a little bit of risk with here. OpenAI does have that massive Stargate project, right? That was about to be a $500 billion investment into 10 gigawatts. I do believe that $500 billion does include kind of like this $300 billion in RPO from Oracle, right? So for me, it doesn't change the story too much. I always believe Stargate was going to be a big portion of that RPO, but there might be certain investors that might start to worry as, oh, look, most of that RPO is coming from one customer. Now, if this one customer fails, it's all game over. The final thing I want to talk about before I head out is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is up roughly 3.7%. And obviously, Oracle's announcement just showcases that there's a lot of demand for AI. There's so much NVIDIA stuff that I haven't covered. And I'm going to say I'm sorry to my NVIDIAns, right? Because there's so much. So there's been 2 events that I haven't covered. There's been a new product launch. We'll talk about the new product launch right now. So NVIDIA actually released a new type of CPU. They call it the Rubin CPX. And this is a new CPU that's designed for massive context inference. It's kind of like an ASIC CPU. It's a GPU. Sorry, I kept saying CPU. I meant GPU, but a GPU meant for massive context inference. Now, they kind of did a presentation. There's a keynote that you can watch. It's about 30 minutes. Ian Buck presented it. And he mentioned that there's a lot of different ways to go with inference. And right now, there is this bottleneck in what they call this massive context inference. And the 2 markets that is AI coding agents and long-term video. Now, this type of CPU is meant to help out that market, which is very niche, but it is one that can grow dramatically. I mean, the video market can be used for everything like robotics training, for video generation, for companies like Netflix, for video games, and the list goes on and on. That alone is a massive market. And then coding is obviously a massive market as well. Now, they mentioned that a lot of their innovators in the machine learning markets like Cursor, Runway, and Magic are already exploring how to use Rubin CPX. They also mentioned how this is going to increase the performance for a lot of these players. The AI compute has increased by about 7.5x with the new Vera Rubin NVL 144 CPX. If it doesn't have the C versus the Blackwell. Prior to this, it was only about like a 3.3% growth. So they almost doubled the growth by adding this new GPU into the mix for the Rubin. So Rubin is a crazy monster. The innovation levels of NVIDIA is crazy. Now, if you want the top level approach here is NVIDIA found a new market that needs a new type of GPU that the typical GPU wouldn't work. They're installing it in the mix. Now they're going to be able to sell to that market that they believe is going to go pretty big. They mentioned to process video, AI models can take up to 1 million tokens for an hour of content, pushing the limits of traditional GPU compute. Rubin CPX integrates video decoders and encoders as well as long context inference processing in a single chip for crazy capabilities in long format applications such as video search and high quality generative video. A huge market there. Now, this is part of the Rubin platform, so this is expected at the end of 2026. Now, this is a pretty cool image. Before, it was just the Rubin, the Vera, and the Connect X9. Now you will have the Rubin CPX in between to kind of get the NVL 144 CPX. Now, if you did order the NVL 44 and you want the CPX individually, you can actually just buy the Rubin CPX individually as well and kind of have a different rack. But I do believe this kind of showcases how NVIDIA is so many steps ahead of the curve. Now, with this, I think AMD might have to prove a little bit more with the MI400 because this NVL 144 CPX increases the bar dramatically, in my opinion, especially for that special type of market. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.